is lost, and I've just taken on the Hispanic. So it's more, our largest client is 50 installs a year.
Chair.
This is more.
Chair, you're on.
So just
We're
having
on.
somebody organize. Oh, sorry.
We're on. Okay,
Thank you. Got it.
so gavel, call to order the Public Arts Design and Advisory Board. I just want to get that. Okay, so first order of business is the approval of the minutes from last meeting back on September 8th, 2022.
Motion to approve?
Motion to
I'll
approve?
second it.
Motion's been,
All in favor?
all in favor, say aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Motion.
Motion moves forward, thank you. Jerry's coaching me. Okay, next item on the business is citizens to be heard. Crickets, nice. All right, make it be known that there are crickets, and that means nobody. Okay, moving on to the next one. New business items, we will just go down the list. Item 4.1, introduce new arts and cultural affairs coordinator.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Amber Bryce. I'm the new Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator. I think we wanted to start first with having the board maybe introduce themselves, because it's been quite a while since y'all have met, and
Right
I
on,
don't know anybody, so.
perfect. Okay, so we'll start from,
Teresa, I don't have any issues, but I did go and see the installation at, what's that park called? I always want to call it Crystal Lake. because- Crest Lake, because I used to come from a place that had a crystal lake, and they are beautiful, really great.
awesome.
I'm Jonathan Barnes. I teach at St. Pete College, visual arts, and on this board is also Clearwater Arts Alliance.
I'm Eric Seiler, I'm actually work for a consulting firm doing construction.
Jerry Manal, owner of My Favorite Art Place, fine art printer and frame shop, resident business owner, theoretical artist.
Hi, Charlene Harrison with Creative Pinellas. I'm Grants and Business Manager.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thank
And
you.
welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. So as I said, my name is Amber. I've been in this position exactly 1 month today. A little background on me, I used to work at the library. I worked here, this building, about 6 or 7 years. I did adult programming. So I know Teresa, she taught some of the programs here. I have a lot of experience with artists in this community between running the gallery and the library before the front exhibit went up. I was also the chair of the Art Harvest Committee with the Junior League for 3 years. I lived in Japan for 2 years. I was on the board of the Sister Cities for 10 years before I just stepped down when I got this position. I really hope to bring a new perspective and worldview to this role. I'm very excited to work with all of you. And I am open and receptive to your thoughts and open to feedback, especially pertaining your role on the board and what you guys would like to see going forward and what we can do better.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item up is discuss the Clearwater Arts Alliance signal boxes.
So I would like to introduce Beth Daniels, who is the current vice president? Co-president of the Clearwater Arts Alliance, and she's going to give an update about the signal boxes. Do you have the images? Okay.
Beth, your timing is perfect. You walked right in on the time. It is
They're
awesome.
also
It is not so easy out there. I had to go for about 4 extra round-arounds.
They're here if you wanted to click on them too as you.
Okay, thank you. Well, just, it's been a while since I've reported in, but we are in our second tranche of funding. Several of you were on the board when we were awarded a tranche back in 2020. And we did 6 neighborhood signal boxes. The Clearwater Arts Alliance has been doing art wrap signal boxes for quite a number of years. But one thing that we did was we sought some funding from y'all to do neighborhood-specific projects where an artist would collaborate with a homeowners association or a resident group to create something that was specific, historically related, maybe thematically related, whatever, but make their own decision about what image would go on that box. And we successfully completed 6 of those, basically during COVID, which turned out to be very successful because a lot of artists almost had no commissions or things happening. So to get one of those commissions, collaborate, even if it was through Zoom meetings with the residents and come up with an image, that worked out great. We wanted to do it again So we came back in 21, late 21, and got approval from your board to do 6 more boxes. So what we ran into was, I want to share these with you if I can. These are just hard copies of a little report that tells you where we are now and gives you some pictures of a couple of the already completed ones. They're sticking together right now for me.
Thank you.
So anyway, we ran into a couple little issues because the city has changed who is the neighborhood coordinator, and under the new cultural plan, really under both, the goal was not to simply go to any neighborhood who could afford it, but was to collaborate with neighborhoods who had very few art amenities. So we had to get basically permission from the city or coordinate with them to say, which neighborhoods do you want us to work with? And we have to have an HOA president or a group or a committee, somebody that we could then identify with and work with that would commit to the effort, because it's not just about saying, here's some money, pick any old image you want. It's about the collaboration, and we really wanted to honor that and make sure it was being done. So we had some delays, but we have now completed 2 of them totally, and we have a 3rd underway. This old report will just tell you sort of the status of what it is. The Glenwood neighborhood has a very engaged committee. They've selected their artist. Their artist is in the middle of producing an image, which came about through suggestions from the neighborhood. Theirs is going to be a very nature-like theme with birds and trees and things like that. The other 2 that were done are a little more symbolic. One thing you might like to know about the Park Plaza, which has been complete, is there was a previous public art project that did a small sidewalk mural in a park that is about, this box is at the corner of Seminole and Myrtle. So it's up here to the north. And as you enter that neighborhood and go about 2 blocks down the street, there's a little boulevard. And there's a little pocket park in the middle of that. And there was already a project done by this same artist with very similar imagery. And it's on the sidewalk, and we actually mounted it on a small box in the neighborhood park as well. It's just a little box that controls the lighting for their landscape lighting in that park. So that's kind of where we stand. We have just found out that it looks like we have a city-approved box at the corner of Palmetto and Keene. So that would be kind of in the Air Park area a little bit. As you go north on Keene, you see the Air Park on the east. Anyway, we're hoping, we have just made contact with the leader of that neighborhood, and we're hoping to collaborate with them and get them started. When they don't have a specific idea for an artist, and obviously part of that is we want to encourage artists get paid a fee for this, is to put them in touch with a variety of artists, not tell them you got to work with Mr. Jones, but to say, here's the websites of 5 or 6 local artists all capable of doing this. Now you look at their work, look at the kind of style that they have and see who you'd like to work with, and then we match them up and then we go forward from there. So we've had a couple of delays just in terms of knowing who we could work with, but now with Samantha settled in and also with Amber's position now, I feel like we'll probably be able to move ahead more quickly. Another thing you should be aware of is, and you'll notice it particularly in this image, the one that's up and the one that is so colorful, in the middle of all this, and we had a bunch of sites approved, FDOT said, well, we're going to give the city some money to improve the traffic signals. They have to have more equipment inside the box. So they completely tore down the boxes that were there and reassembled them, so you can see there's now 2 boxes. There's a huge box and another separate box next to it, which they've already dismantled 2 that we had previously done wrappings on. So we had to find funding to rewrap those, including the nice one at Clearwater Country Club that was done at the 100th anniversary of golf in Clearwater. So, obviously as a private sponsorship who had paid for that, we didn't want to see it torn down a year and a half after it was put up with no explanation of how, oh well, too bad, hope you enjoyed it for the while you did. We had to manage and figure out how to do that. Not part of the neighborhood funding that y'all did, but just part of the challenges we've dealt with. So the new one that will go in at Drew and Highland for the Glenwood neighborhood will be just like this, one huge box with a separate side box. So there is more cost. The basic cost, besides paying the artist, is we pay by the square inch for this expensive material that wraps it. And that's inclusive of the installer's fee for his labor in doing it. He has these huge format printers that will allow him to print these, big, gigantic panels. So, at any rate, we didn't anticipate that they would be as expensive because now they're almost twice as big as all the ones that we had previously wrapped, if you look at them by the square inch. So that may be a challenge as we try to complete the last two in terms of what we had previously budgeted, but at least it looks like we're on track to get the 6 done that we had wanted to do. And all of those things, except for Jonathan, who sits on our CAA board and has heard these reports periodically about what's going on and what problems we have run into, the rest of you probably were not aware, and I felt you should be aware of what challenges we've run into. But the products that are coming out in the long run, I think, are quite lovely, and the neighborhoods have all had some little events to celebrate the completion of them and the fact that it is something that their neighborhood will take a lot of pride in. So happy to answer any questions if there are any.
No? I was just about ready to say, Beverly, we got to hurry because we're running out of time. But thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of these left if we need to leave. This is say, I have to say.
Okay, so that takes care of item 4.2. We'll move on to 4.3, discuss the ARPA grant update.
So, the City of Clearwater received $22.48 million in funds from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. Anyone can go to the city website and see how these funds are distributed. The city allocated $1 million to be allocated to a nonprofit cultural affairs grant. This could be used for arts and cultural programming, as well as temporary or permanent art installations or museum installations. We received 13 applications. Of those 13, 10 were deemed eligible. And I will show you the list of organizations and how much they requested. These will go to City Council for approval on April 20th, so the public is welcome to tune into that meeting to see the recommendations made by the panel. The panel of reviewers and myself will recommend that this particular grant be open for a second round. So we encourage the board, as well as anybody else watching, to please make any nonprofit organizations that you know that have to do with art and culture aware of this grant, and to look for the second round of grant funding to be open in mid to late summer. As I said, we only received 13 applications, so that may be because a lot of organizations didn't know about it, and we would really like more this time. Any questions on that?
So, and those are the only ones that actually apply to the ones you got on the list there. I didn't do a count, but I assume it's,
Those are the ones that were deemed eligible.
okay. So the other ones weren't eligible. Okay, I was going to say it's not 13, but okay, perfect. All right. Anybody have any questions? Anyone else?
Is there any assistance needed from us besides an awareness that it's happening, help to promote it?
Not really. I hope to promote it would be great. I know Creative Pinellas actually had offered to have a free grant writing class to help some of these smaller organizations write grants for this particular thing. So I will try to reach out and let everybody know what date they have set for that. I know they haven't set one, so they want it to be close to when this grant opens.
And forgive my ignorance if you said it, but the 1.6 million, that was the total grant value, so it was distributed accordingly?
No, 1.6 was the funding requested. We only had 1 million to give away, and
Okay.
we have about,
So we have a deficit of $676,000.
right, but we're opening for a second round, so we
Gotcha.
didn't use all of
Okay.
the 1 million.
Gotcha. How do you determine who gets the 1 million?
So there is a panel with art organizations,
Mhm.
people, probably about 5 people, I think it was, that we all reviewed, scored it, discussed it, and decided how much and which organizations we were going to fund
Of those ones there, which ones do we know?
of these ones. So it's not approved by council yet, so
Okay.
that has to go to council for approval.
I guess I'm confused. You said you got 1 million with the grants, you got 1.6 million total there, so which one of those got their money and which ones didn't?
That's what I'm saying, that has to go to council for approval. The actual organizations that were chosen.
Oh, you haven't actually
announced.
you haven't made the decision yet of those?
We have made the decision, but publicly it'll be made.
Okay, so
at
you can't say
council.
at this meeting?
Correct.
Okay, that's great. All right. Anybody else?
They'll take the recommendations to council.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay. All right, next item, discuss the Americans for Arts National Survey.
Open this. So some of you may be aware, but maybe some of the public does not know, the American for the Arts Foundation is a very well-respected national nonprofit organization based out of Washington, D.C. They have an office in New York as well. Every year they do every 5 years they do a national survey. This will be the 6th one, and I will quickly read you the project overview. So for short, it's called AEP6. It's the 6th economic impact study for the nonprofit arts and culture industry in the U.S. The study is conducted approximately every 5 years to gauge the economic impact on employment, government revenue, and household income of spending by nonprofit arts and cultural organizations and the event-related spending by their audiences. Previous studies were published in 94, 02, 07, 2012, 2017. Due to the unique nature and the realities of the global COVID-19 pandemic, the 6th study was postponed for 16 months. In 2017, the previous study documented that the nonprofit arts and cultural industry generated $166.3 billion in economic activity, spending by organizations plus the event-related spending by their audiences, which supported 4.6 million jobs and generated $27.5 billion in government revenue. The EAP series demonstrates that an investment in the arts provides both cultural and economic benefits. So this study is mainly to gauge how much locals and tourists are spending on events, and we have been tasked, the city of Clearwater has been tasked with collecting 350 surveys for this study. As you all know, I just came into this role where I'm a little behind the curve because they are due May 31st. I am determined to meet the goal of 350. I have 10 events that I'm scheduled to attend to collect these surveys. Sugar Sand Festival, the Arts Alliance Tours, Salsa de Mayo, Taste of Ethnicity, as well as Ruth Eckerd Hall has been very generous in allowing me to have a table at some of the upcoming shows at Ruth Eckerd Hall and Capitol Theater. And I want to publicly thank Susan Gorschleib with the Tampa Bay Ukulele Society. She's offered to collect surveys this weekend at the Downtown Ukulele Fest, so hopefully we'll get 50 from that. If anybody on the board has suggestions of events or knows anybody willing to volunteer their time to collect surveys, I'm very open to help and suggestions. There is a maximum of 50 surveys that can be collected at each event to prevent skewing results. They have to be taken in person, and it has to be an arts and cultural related event in the city limits of Clearwater.
Is there a specific demographic that you're wanting to be the survey filled out by, or just anybody attending an arts and crafts cultural event?
Anybody attending, but they do have regulations as far as they want BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, people of color. So an event that is geared more towards Black, Indigenous, people of color, or the Latino community. So Salsa de Mayo and Taste of Ethnicity will check those boxes for us. And if you guys have any other events that you can think of.
It sounds like you have to hit 7 events just to minimum.
Pretty much.
But it's more like you need about 10 or 12 to actually get the football out, if you can get 50 out of each of them.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're running quite short.
Yes.
So I'm trying to understand, is it just the attendees of the event? Could it be the artists that are participating in?
It could be anybody attending the event, yes. But the main question, so if you look at the, I don't know if you can see the survey, but it asks for how much did you spend on admission or tickets? How much did you spend on food or drinks attending this event? Food or drinks purchased before or after the activity? Groceries. So it really wants to know, even how much you spent on gas getting there or childcare, things like that. So it can be the artist in the event. It can be people attending the event. It could be anyone in attendance.
Is it limited to the Clearwater area, or you can't go to Dunedin or Safety Harbor and hit
So
up?
they have their own 350 that they're supposed to collect. So.
And it has to be an event. It cannot be emailed out, requested to be filled and sent back.
Unfortunately, it has to be done in person. But it doesn't matter. So the art walk, for instance, doesn't have that many people, maybe 5 to 10 people, but that's still, a survey that we can collect from those people. So So it doesn't matter how big or small the event.
What is your deadline for this?
May 31st.
A class on the subject of art?
Yeesh, a lot of classes.
We have a gallery reception at St. Pete College on May 3rd. You're more than welcome to come to that. It's at 6 o'clock. Beth will be there. It's for the Kalik Shinnecock. Yeah, it's a pretty big, should be quite a few people attending, so that might be an opportunity for you to collect some surveys.
It's got to be the right campus, though.
That's Clearwater campus.
Perfect.
It's on Drew Street,
Perfect.
2465.
I will mention, I think this particular study is important to Clearwater because it'll give us a baseline to go off of before the park opens. So it'll be interesting to see in 5 years how the amphitheater, everything has really, how much money it's brought into the area specifically.
And you said you've been fortunate to talk to the folks at,
Ruth Eckerd and Capitol Theater.
yeah, those are two, I mean, could you classify any of their events? Because, I mean, they're constantly having concerts and
Yes.
hit each one.
Yeah, maybe not a comedy show, but music, theater,
Comedies are.
art. I guess you could argue comedy's art.
I mean, it technically is a form of art, so I guess, I'm trying to think of, because, like I said, minimum 7, if you can only cap on 50, is kind of difficult. And they are located at the same location, but, and you need volunteers to help collect and
If anybody
submit.
wants to volunteer, we're willing and open.
This Saturday, the ukulele festival.
Yeah, so we actually have a volunteer collecting
Okay, good.
for that, yes. Yes.
A couple hundred people there.
Mhm.
Right. Well, we'll put our heads together, and if somebody got something, we'll send you a note.
Great, thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Anything else on that one, Amber, you want to bring up? No? Anybody have any more questions on that? All right, move on to the next one. So review the current public art fund balance.
Just lost my screen. So the current public art fund is available, has an available balance of $102,245.53. And the non-department cultural services budget has a balance of $69,914.60. These are kind of umbrellaed, but they're kept separate because of a city ordinance that says the public art fund needs to be kept in a separate fund. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions on that one? No? No? Nope, okay. All right. Next one, review the, I don't want to butcher that, Mercado?
Mercado, yes. So the Mercado is going to be located on the corner of Cleveland and Gulf Bay where they meet. Traditional Mercados are markets where people can buy food, drinks, and they have vendors that sell items. Clearwater's Mercado space is going to be centered on the community and be a community gathering space. There's a small indoor building that's going to act as storage for tables and chairs that will come out for events. And on the side of that building, there is a space for public art. We are working with the CRA right now to write up a call for artists for that space. We want to try to stay true to the culture of the community of that space, and we can't wait to see what kind of proposals we get back. The plan is to open it locally, as in the Tampa Bay area, and then have a panel narrow it down to 3 proposals. And then at the grand opening, which will probably be around September, we will have the community come and vote for what they want to see on the walls. It'd be nice because they'll actually get to see the structure in the building, and then we'll have the art displayed, the proposed art displayed. They can choose what they want to see in that space.
What is the footprint of the building? And is it right there at the corner where currently I'm trying to get a feel for exactly what space you're referencing on the corner of
Fortunately,
Gulf Bay and
I don't have an image of it, but it's basically a
The
triangle. There'll be green space, and then there's shade structures with concrete.
So the existing businesses are going away? Is it in the space where there are existing businesses?
No, I don't believe so. No.
It looks like it's on the corner of Cleveland and Gulf to Bay, sorry.
Gulf to Bay,
I see
yes.
it's on the west side of it.
Cleveland, Gulf to Bay, and then that's
Oh,
the,
wait. that where the head shop is?
And the t-shirt shop.
The t-shirt shop, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, is it where the stores
Shops
are?
are at.
It's like a smoke shop or something,
Right.
yeah, now.
It's not where the buildings are.
Say again, please?
It is not where the buildings are, it's where the triangle section.
Micah, I'm sorry.
I just drove through that intersection.
Did you?
I live right-
I'm gonna drive
I
on
live
the
real
drive.
close to there, yeah.
I'm going to drive on the way back, actually.
Micah Maxwell, Chief Innovation Officer. It's actually where the triangle used to be. There was the road kind of went around that triangle right at that intersection. It's part of the roadway, and the triangle itself are where the Mercado is. The shops that are just, I guess it'll be northeast of that, where that triangle was. So those are remaining. Those are still privately owned. We didn't purchase any of those properties.
So, I guess because I'm not understanding where it's going to, that's in between traffic. So you're not suggesting,
So the
it's not a gathering area.
so that triangle traffic pattern isn't going to be there anymore.
right there.
Part of the roadway was, I remember correctly, vacated. The traffic pattern is going to be a little different than it was prior to the construction project.
Okay, so we're not going to encourage families with small children to play in an area where
No.
they could get hit
Correct.
either way,
Yep.
and that's what we're paying
Yeah,
for.
they've changed that whole traffic pattern, yep.
Okay.
And that's all part of the plan, is to take that, I don't know what the triangle was, but that section, which looks like a very busy part, which is noted for sure. Okay.
All right, so there'll be room for public art once the structure is built.
Yes. In the
Public
renderings,
art.
you can see there is, to be green screen, so like a screen for vines with the spaces with the lines, and then everything else that's clear is a space for public art right here.
You're thinking murals, two-dimensional?
Ideally, or
Okay.
possibly mosaics, but it'll depend on
Okay.
the proposals we get back from budget.
And then somebody from this committee needs to be on that committee.
Yeah.
Will do.
So you have a committee to narrow it down, then you got public to actually vote publicly to determine democratically who gets to actually select it. So committee will do that one, okay? Timing?
We hope to have, the grand opening will hope to be around September, so the art would go in after that. Hopefully October, November.
And when is the selection panel going to be put together?
We haven't even done the call for artists yet, so we haven't gotten that far. We haven't
Right.
officially made the call for artists.
S-
It would be in the next couple months, so we'd probably open it up for 2 to 3 months, and then a panel would be selected after that to review the
Okay.
art.
Because oftentimes a theme, but you did reference some suggestions of a theme. Oftentimes a theme goes into the call for artists. Sometimes the selection panel is involved in coming up with the theme.
Okay. This was kind of a combined effort with CRA and neighborhoods, and they were very, very specific that they wanted to keep it true to the culture down there in the community. So that's kind of what we're going with right now, but
Makes perfect sense.
I will take that feedback.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else have any more comments? Okay. All right, next topic. The 580 water tank project, again in my neighborhood.
So Public Utilities is repairing 2 water tanks located on Florida 580 this year. Repainting the outside of the tank is part of that repair budget, and Public Utilities reached out and asked if it would be possible to include some art on those water tanks. We think this is an excellent opportunity to incorporate more public art in a space that's generally pretty bland or boring. Our city grants writer also brought to my attention that there is a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts in which a structure like this would qualify. It's a 1-to-1 grant, so ideally if we were able to obtain that grant, the budget for this project would be around $60,000 total. The idea would be the main tank, which is the one you're looking at there, that has the most visibility for traffic, would have a larger mural on one side, and then the other tank, the west tank, with a little less visibility, would possibly have a smaller image or a single image instead of an entire mural. And we are moving forward with a call to artists on this project as well.
So you already have the $60,000 budget in place? The
We
funds in
don't.
place?
We have about 30,000 that,
So you have 30 now, you still need to apply for the grant to double it, so that's your one-to-one, that's the arts project. So hope was for 60,000, and the anticipation is to do a mural on the actual tank itself.
yes,
Okay. And that's right next to the old countryside library,
it is, yes.
or the temporary police
Another-
department.
And do you have an outreach for artists to submit at this time?
Yeah, so we're going to use the website, callforentry.org, so it's www.callforentry.org, or you can go to myclearwater.com, where you can also reach that website, do call to artists, it'll direct you there. And then we will do press releases and also ask art organizations in the community to help distribute that call for artists.
Looks like a good location.
Yes, it would be like around, like this side of the building,
Nice.
ideally, of the tank. The other tank sits back here.
The whole tank? Dude, the
The
whole
whole tank would
tank?
cost a lot more money.
What? No, the whole tank, and then the second tank goes back in the neighborhood, it's even better, it's even more accessible, but 580 is a much better location. Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, so you actually are, my ignorance is associated with that, so I apologize, but you are looking at just the actual frontage on 580.
Ideally, because, like we said, they're cost-wise. So this is the west tank, so there is a lot less visibility. So a smaller image somewhere around here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of trees around there, so that's,
Right.
that kind of blocks a lot of it. And another thing I will notice is that had a whole bunch of mold all over it. for the
It's
longest
getting
time.
cleaned, and it's part of the repair budget, I
Well, I
believe.
say that because that's something to think about when go forward, is it's got to be cleaned afterwards. So whatever goes on there is going to
Right.
collect that same mold, because there's a lot of trees around there.
You're right. Yeah. So
I just
upkeep
didn't see
would
it.
probably, when artists send a proposal, they have to include
Some
upkeep.
upkeep, mhm.
So whether it be pressure washing every year, or, there's a special sealant we put on there.
Or like pressure washing the tree outside of the library right here, which has got dust
Yeah,
all
what
over
about
it.
that? The dirty tree.
Uh-huh.
I will
Should we have a
work on that.
conversation with our neighboring contractor, Skanska, and have them come pressure wash it?
I'll work
I
on
always
that.
noticed that too.
I did
I'm
as
like, who
well.
cleans the tree?
I believe it's supposed to be me.
Oh.
I'll work on
You'll
that.
be out there.
Well, it's not you, no. But
Not the first person that's brought it to my attention, so I am aware it needs to be cleaned, yeah.
and again, it goes back to the same thing like you just said, that the artist has that in their budget to clean it, and the artist didn't have the budget to clean that as well, but that is not the fault of the artist, that is actually the fault of the contractor next door creating dust, I can assure you that.
Correct.
So they need to be informed that that is something they should be cleaning.
Okay.
Sorry, not that I have any glossiness, but
She's making it.
yeah, that's my world. Awesome. Okay, any more questions about the water tank? No? Okay. All right, moving on. Discuss the employee art contest. Nice.
So the municipal services parking lot, municipal services building, parking garage, has 4 glass cases that you can see here in this picture for art displays. The assistant parking manager had mentioned doing an employee call for art, and so we turned that into a contest. We selected 4 winners, and each of the winners will get their own case to exhibit their artwork. We plan to do high-resolution scans for these arts and then transfer them onto metal, because as you can imagine, these cases get very, very hot, and a lot of people don't want to leave their paintings inside of them. So this will be a nice keepsake for us to give to the employees as a gift when the exhibit is over, and it would also allow us to leave that exhibit up for a much longer period of time. The employees will also receive a prize for winning. We're working with the special events director to see if we can get tickets or some other prizes for these employees. And I'll be sure to bring the exhibit, the final exhibit, pictures of it, to the next meeting when we
Cool.
meet next time.
Nice. And you said you did narrow it down to or you haven't asked for the...
We selected the 4
Okay, and you
winners.
can't share those with us?
I don't have them here, but some of the images are like taken with a cell phone and stuff like that. I'd rather do it justice.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody have any more comments? Okay. All right, that covers our new business. so we'll move on to old business, the review of the Clearwater Fire Department Station 46 project.
So Clearwater Fire Station 46 is located on Clearwater Beach. I rode with Chief Ehlers down to Clearwater Beach Station yesterday, which is currently under construction. It's on Mandalay. He showed me the designated spot for the art piece. It's going to be outside of the building. It's supposed to be a very beautiful building. They expect it to be finished in June or July, which is earlier than expected. The budget for this art piece is around $85,000, which would be the 1% allotted for public art from the construction budget. I believe the chief and the lead engineer were shown a piece of art that was located at the Seminole City Center that they really liked. It's a structure. And I spoke with that artist, and she said that piece cost $120,000 in 2017. So you can imagine things have only gotten more expensive. It's cathedral glass that comes from Germany. I asked her if we could possibly use a different glass that's not the cathedral glass, and she said she could, or maybe if we can make the structure a little smaller to bring the cost down. This particular artist said she would send over some renderings with proposed prices, but she also has multiple projects ahead of us. So that being said, I would like guidance from the board on whether or not they think we should do a public call to artists on this project. I haven't been here very long. I've done some research on whether or not a call went out. I can't find anything that a call went out for this. Maybe you have more knowledge on that than I do, but
So I recall, actually, we talked about that police station a long time ago, actually. Yeah, and we'd gone over some scenarios of where to put it.
Yeah.
Like I believe it was,
There was at one time there was going to be like a pillar piece.
Right.
At one time it was going to
Right.
be on the building.
Like a bust.
Then there was like
Yep.
a bench thing, and it was maybe on the other side of the building. I'm not 100% sure, but it's changed several times.
right, so that
Um,
it hasn't necessarily been decided, but it was more of where and what it was going to be, as I recall. I don't think that a decision was ever made.
okay.
Who on the board is connected to that project?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it doesn't sound like we have any history or anything about that.
You don't have the old files?
No, I mean, I've done searches through our records, and, I have the proposed piece and the proposed artist, but
That's all?
there was no public call that I could find. And because this artist is not guaranteeing to work with us, it could be months before we get anything from her for a proposal, and there's no telling if it'll even fit in the budget. I'm asking if the board thinks it would be better to do an open call. I will say the chief is open to an open call for artists, but he has a very specific vision that, we want to keep it a structure, there's a space for it.
An open call is appropriate. Clearly communicating the vision makes the open call more successful, because that allows the artists to weed themselves in and out versus whether they can accomplish what it is within the budget. But there should be somebody on this board who has been tasked, and the part of the issue is that it's possible that the person from this board that was tasked with it is either here and has forgotten, or is no longer on the board.
Right.
Okay.
So somebody on this board tasked with that particular project, and that's one of the things I keep mentioning is that there's one member per board tasked on each project that we're
Right.
affiliated with.
Right.
And then that can help become the memory and guide things. It's just one voice. But then when the committee gets together, the panel gets together with the resident, the professional, the representative from the location, then there's always a member of the board that's there as well
Okay,
and able to give input.
that's good.
And that would be, the board member should have been in the actual records of the meeting minutes of who that was, who was determined as the board member to represent. I'm surprised that would not be in the actual records of the city council or
It might be
city
because
Clearwater.
I've been very vocal on this particular project.
It might have been you?
Who knows? So we have to go back and search my records.
We'll go back
I
and
just
we'll-
remember
and
talking
we'll-
about it several times, so.
Yeah.
We'll check the records. I did watch the last meeting you all had, and there was nobody delegated in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
it
a
could
couple
be 2
years
years
ago.
old.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's why,
Easily.
yeah.
okay.
Very easily.
Yeah, it's been around a long, long time.
Has this artist that you're communicating with been told that they have secured this commission? No.
There's no guarantee.
Don't worry, everybody's busy right now. All prices are higher. There's 7 or 8 ways to go about doing any project.
Right.
And if somebody doesn't jump and say, I would be really honored and proud, we can find somebody that would be. They can do it within the budget. It's not a problem. We don't need to chase.
Right.
We just need to open up the opportunity, and as you mentioned before, let artists know, and the people that feel that they can do a good job with the materials. And they might even have a great idea that the chief says, that's even better, thanks for honoring my vision and pulling it off.
Exactly.
So,
The board is open to a call for artists for that,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
We're kind of restarting this project, I
pretty much.
All right. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I have a question. When you say call to artist, is it just for a certain location? Is it just for Clearwater artists, or is it any,
No.
it's open, any,
Yeah, it's been
any
national.
county?
Yeah, depending on the size of the project and what the project is. Sometimes we'll say we only want Pinellas artists, but we brought in international artists on our mural projects.
Yep.
It just all depends on the project size of the project and budget.
Okay.
Right. I think, like you just mentioned, the Mercado, we're going to keep it local, try to keep it in the Tampa Bay area if possible. So it just depends on what the actual
Okay.
specific project is going to do.
Okay, thank you.
We have a preference of using Pinellas or Pinellas Hillsborough Manatee artists. Historically, and we used to use Cafe Press a lot, we didn't get enough submissions.
Right. Well, I know with my organization there, we're only Pinellas County, so that was what I
Right.
wanted
Yeah.
to know.
Makes sense. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Moving on, let's talk about the Crest Lake Public Art.
Crest Lake Park. So we are very happy to announce that the Crest Lake Park sculptures by John, his last name is very difficult, Don Gialanella, have been installed and they're currently on display at Crest Lake Park. There are barriers, so here's some photos. I don't know if any of you have been down there and been able to see the sculptures. They're very beautiful. There's 5 in total. But as of last week, there are barriers now that surround the sculptures. The last piece that has to go in there is the signage. So I'm working with our public communications department right now to create signs with descriptions of the pieces as well as keep off signage. We are considering doing an unveiling ceremony or possibly an official ribbon cutting ceremony for this, honoring the artist and allowing the community to come out. We wanted to take suggestions from the board on what you think about that. If you would want to do a ceremony, if you want to do an unveiling, because there are differences.
What do you mean when you say there's barriers around them?
So it's an actual,
I can't see the picture, it's too small, I don't know if you can.
yeah, it's pretty small. They're basically like plastic posts with chains that connect them on the ground
Why?
to keep them off.
So people don't climb on the platform.
For safety concerns and people climbing on them. And
The whole conversation and the creation of these pieces, everything was around safety, knowing full well that people were going to climb on them.
I agree with Jerry. We actually had an extensive amount of discussion specifically about that because we were concerned that the actual pieces themselves would be able to not only be able to handle people potentially
We don't want kids
riding,
to get stuck.
but we didn't want them to get broken or hurt while they were on them. So that was, I think there was a couple of iterations of the artist saying, trying to make it more safe just to ensure that. So I think what...
You can't keep kids off. You might be able
Samantha
to
can
keep
talk to the,
Hi, this is Samantha Mulay. I'm our neighborhood services manager, and I actually completed the installation of these projects before Amber came into her position. But so yes, it was taken into consideration the safety of these sculptures, and the artist was very well aware, and he had definitely designed them around those things. We did find though, once they were actually installed, a lot of the metal edges they hit right where kind of a child's head would be. And the platforms, it goes right to the edge of the platform, but if a kid was running by, if they tripped and fell or anything like that, and our risk manager and also our park staff who worked the area and are very familiar with playground safety and kids, they see that every single day what happens out in the park. They were very concerned about tripping hazards over the concrete platforms and, kids' head maybe or something happening where someone trips and falls into the metal edges. And they are, having been out there with the installers, they are definitely sharper.
They're sharp and they're metal.
They're metal, yeah, they're stainless steel metal. They are buffed a little bit around the edges, but you can definitely see when you're out there how it could be a potential hazard. We spoke with Risk in the installation of these, and they're like a fence post with a very light metal chain around. They're very decorative, like you would see in like a museum. They're not something that obstructs the view or anything like that. That's kind of what it came down to, is just making sure that not only are we protecting the visitors to the park, but also the art from getting climbed on and things from happening.
I'd like to apologize on behalf of the board because we had extensive conversations on this. We pushed back on metal, we pushed back on size. We talked about it. I have a kid that has climbed every single building in the city, so I'm very aware of you can't do that. My kid can climb it, and use that as a deterrent for half of the things that come into this room. So I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
We were incredibly safety conscious in talking about this, and they're beautiful.
They're very beautiful.
And maybe
I think the biggest thing from this is we've learned a lot of lessons when we go into starting to look into the Coachman Park call for artists. Especially, we have a couple of these next to playgrounds, play equipment in areas where you're going to very easily transition from playing on the log swing to, oh, there's a giant spider I can go climb on, made out of metal, So at least for me, it was a really big learning experience to say, hey, if we put some art next to a playground, maybe we make it playable art or interactive art or musical instruments or something like that that's meant to be played with and meant to be climbed on. But they are beautiful. We're just taking the necessary, precautions and making sure that they're safe for both the people visiting the park and also making sure that the art can maintain and last.
well, that's disappointing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a question about all of our outstanding projects, which I don't have a list, but I know that we have more than Fire Department Station 46 sort of in the works, and maybe that's not appropriate to discuss now. It would be a shame to have to wait until, June's our next meeting, which isn't that far away. But I believe we have many more projects in play, including our contribution to Imagine Clearwater and the time frame on that and activities that need to be done.
So I have something in my director's report about Coachman, but I can talk about the projects I've mentioned here are on my list of things to do, and I'm sure there's more that I don't even know of yet that are in the
We'll
works
wait till
and coming
June.
up. Yeah.
And I'll add to that one too. One of the things I mentioned too, Jerry, was the police station number 3. That was on last meetings back in September. So it doesn't look like anything happened. I don't know.
So I actually went out there and spoke with Major Johnson. There was terrazzo floor that was put into the welcome area.
Mhm.
They put a blue stripe down the side, and that is considered public art. And so that is what they're
It was part of the
using
conversation.
for public art.
Was it?
It was part of the conversation. I didn't know that it had been decided on. I didn't know if a panel had put together. I thought you were supposed to be on the panel.
I was supposed to be on the panel, and I
think I missed
asked
that
several
meeting.
times, and
Because I would have objected to that.
Yeah.
Stripe,
Yeah.
as would have I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
There is a wall, like the outside of it is actually built to hold a mural, like the way it's cut out. So maybe in the future, in a couple of years, we find funding and we can do a mural on that wall, but I've been told there is no more money left from this project. So the budget has been used for that floor.
Interesting. Well, I think you've got a little bit of dissent on that one, just because it doesn't seem like it kind of might have fallen through the cracks.
Yep.
And somebody might have made a decision in a vacuum, potentially. And that's not okay. So, not your fault, obviously,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, I don't disagree.
and that's my neighbor, that's where I'm from, so that was a big deal to me. I care a lot.
Isn't there an overpass project that we discussed also? Yep, I haven't heard about. There was an overpass project by the Causeway that I haven't heard an update
The
on.
lighting on the Causeway.
Yes,
Yeah.
we talked about that.
And I don't
Lighting
know-
on a project of an overpass by the Causeway.
Working with DOT.
We just don't know.
That's not on my radar, but my sister has brought it to my attention that she really likes the lights that were on there, so, will.
You thinking the Causeway over the,
Right, Mel, 611 or 19?
you're not thinking the Causeway going over the water to Clearwater Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had talked at one point about some sort of lighting that could be changed.
Well, I think there was, because that one, I was thinking it was the actual LED lights that are underneath the 19 bridge on Gulf to Bay,
That one needs to be repaired still.
which that one, yeah.
Yeah,
So they
which
usually
has
got
been
something different.
ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the, whatever, the Memorial Causeway, is that what
Okay.
it's called? There were lights, and I guess because the causeway curves, they needed lights in a certain spot.
Yeah.
I don't remember the
And we were talking
specifics.
about, I think, in relation to the federal money, and we were wondering, how that could
Maybe,
be
yeah.
supported, or, there was something like that, it seems to me. But I don't
It
know
was a
what,
long time ago.
what happened with that. It's a long time ago,
Yeah.
for sure.
The other one is the overpass on Gulf Bay on 19, where the lights need to be repaired. And that, I think, was a
That's the DOT
DOT
conversation.
thing. Yeah, finding out who's paying for that. But
As a pedestrian overpass on Gulf to Bay is being still discussed with Fort Pinellas, to my understanding, but for the funding for that. I think that's the one you're talking about, that's further up on Gulf to Bay.
Yeah, I think that was what we were talking about.
Yeah, and that one, so we're not, at this point, I don't know where we are on the project. We were working with Fort Pinellas on it. We'll get some more information on that one for you. The bridge lighting has been a conversation for the Memorial Causeway a couple times. That's one we can certainly try to pick back up again as well. It was one that the previous Parks Coordinator was working on, Cultural Affairs Coordinator was working on, so we'll see if we can get some more information on that. We do have a big list of projects, which I'm sure we can bring forward at some point, but some of them would include, so you don't have to wait all the way till June, but we can flush them out a little later. I mean, we have in the next couple of years, we have the South Osceola parking garage. That'll be right at Pierce and Osceola, new parking garage. The Clearwater Beach Marina is a large project. I think right now it's going to be $30 to $40 million is the estimated. Big project. It's one that, based on the current percentage and cap, would actually hit the cap, just like Imagine Clearwater did, at $200,000. Here we have the City Hall project. Depending on what we do with that project, we may want to consider if there are a lot of conversations about whether we're going to renovate MSB, our current MSB building, construct a new City Hall. A combination of the two, we may want to look at potentially allocating dollars to the renovation of MSB, considering it's going to be a pretty big renovation if we're going to do it.
Sure.
So that may be something, maybe an opportunity for us to look at something as well. Fire Station 47 is also one that's going to be probably in the next 2 years. I believe they're about to start design up on that one. Again, it's going to be near Clearwater High. So there are a number of projects coming up in the next couple of years. Most of, I believe, the projects in the upcoming year are focused on the utilities, of which they're usually exempted from the art and design ordinance. Solid waste has got an administrative facility that needs to be updated. The recycling facility, as I'm sure you've read in the news, is substandard, and we'll see some upgrades to that. Public Works. So I would say in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, there's a lot of projects. So we're really ramping up for those now. I fully understand that a number of projects really kind of fell through the cracks, and the substation, some of the other ones, that's what we're focused on trying to fix in the next few meetings, is trying to improve our processes and make sure y'all are getting what you need and we're getting what we need from you all. So we'll certainly do better on that as we move forward.
We appreciate that, and we understand there's a lot of stuff, and we've been hearing about the extra projects coming up, and I guess why Jerry brought it up, because there's a lot of them that there's not just two, there's several. So yeah, if we can, itemize all of those to talk about next meeting would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure we could, I have a list back in my office, I'll get to Amber, and I'm sure we can pop it out to y'all on the email, and you can at least take a look while we're waiting for the next
No,
one.
that'd be great.
We mostly just want to provide support.
Okay. I think we beat that one up enough. I'm trying to think, we've already done it. So now it's your turn, Amber, to give us your report for the next item.
So it was just brought to my attention that the board usually elects a chair and vice chair the first meeting of the year. I believe this is your first meeting of the year. So currently, Mr., is it Seller or Saylor? Seiler. They have it spelled wrong
Oh, it's spelled right, S-E-I-L-E-R, that's right.
on the agenda. Mr. Seiler is the current chair, and Mr. Barnes is the current vice chair. So you all can decide to keep the same chairs, elect new ones. The decision is yours.
I make a motion to keep the same.
Come on, Jerry.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Could you just say a name for the record?
I'm sorry, Jerry Manal.
Who you're appointing?
Make a motion to keep Mr. Seidler as the chair and Mr. Barnes as the co-chair, specifically since they had a truncated year last year and will have a truncated this year, and their excellence and intelligence is so needed for our board.
You were way too kind. Yeah, let's have a second.
I'll second it.
2 seconds. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We are here for a while. Thank
Great.
you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The last thing that I have is that we have a Coachman Park Public Art Survey that is currently live on the city website. We encourage everybody to take this survey, give us your feedback. It asks what type of art the public wants to see, materials they want used, things like that. We have a lot of spaces in the park that are designated for public art, so community feedback is going to be really important moving forward with these projects. And if you just go to myclearwater.com, you can type in Coachman Art or Art Survey in the search bar, and it should pop up right here. It'll take you to a SurveyMonkey website.
So what is the time frame? I know we don't have time to go through a full briefing on what's happening with Imagine, but there'd be an art survey, people give their opinion. What involvement is needed, wanted from us, the board, as far as public art goes at Coachman? How can we help? What's the time frame?
We don't really have a time frame yet because there's so many spaces to put art in that we actually just discussed this morning, creating the timeline for those pieces because it's unrealistic to get it all done at once. Art cannot be installed until the project is completely finished. So they're doing the grand opening that week of July 4th, a week before that. And so unfortunately, there won't be any public art there at that time. I think the ones we would focus on is probably the ones that are the most visual, maybe these mural walls that you can see right outside of the library. They're clearly for murals. That's probably the easiest step for us to take as the first project, to put on an open call for that. We would ask the board maybe what direction you want as far as themes and being on the panel review to vote for that as well.
Okay.
And just promoting this survey would be very helpful as well.
Sure. And I think that had some spaces that were already discussed too, so there was like a layout of all that.
Yes, I believe the map is online. We've been doing some community engagement presentations at all of the libraries. It has a map and there's like red circles to show where
Got it.
the proposed art is.
Okay. All right.
That's all I have.
Okay, so next item is board members to be heard. Since we're running out of time, we've got another 1 more minute left. Board members to be heard? Jerry?
No.
Okay, we have nothing to say.
All right.
Next
Thank you,
item.
Amber.
So I guess if there's nothing else, anybody else have anything else in the,
I get on my soapbox about the signage.
you gotta be quick, Beth.
Oh, yeah.
I will. But you know, the lovely ones at Crest Lake, and I've been at so many of these that I can't remember how far back, it was discussed that they go in, et cetera. So I feel your frustration about not having incorporated whatever the safety ideas were or whatever. But an ongoing thing, because it took something like 3 years or more after it was in, for the beautiful learning tree, which is right outside this library, to get a plaque that said what the name of the piece was and who the artist was. I must have stood up at least 5 of these different meetings saying, to me, it's got to be part of the original deal. Nobody gets paid for the installation unless the artist, there's some kind of recognition plaque or signage that goes in when the deal is done. And it ought to be part of the requirements. So
Absolutely.
that's my soapbox. I've said it before. I'll say it again until it starts happening, because it obviously didn't happen again.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah,
Beat the gravel.
Okay,
totally.
I think that concludes our meeting today, so everybody have a great week. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.